is about making change possible. Is there anyone that wants to change some aspect of our lives? Does anyone have an aspect of our lives that we want to change? And based on these principles, we know that change is possible, right? Then how come our lives don't necessarily change, or perhaps they don't change fast enough? So we realize that we don't see the world how it is, but we see it how we are. So if we want to make a change in how the world is, what has to change? How we are. And that's what I became aware of early. I graduated from Chiropractic College, and I opened up a practice in South Alabama. And I didn't have any funding. I didn't have wealthy parents. I got myself through school for the most part. My brother helped a little bit. So I rented this little space, and it wasn't even on the main road. It was an old gun shooting range. And I waited for the patients to come. And I'm sitting in that back office. As a matter of fact, I even invited a friend of mine that was working with the EPA. I said, look, be my partner. You run the front, I'll run the back, and we'll do a 50-50 partnership. We're both sitting in the back office, in that back rental office. As a matter of fact, we were even living in that office. That's not a joke. So it was an attorney that was on the main road in front of me that handed me a book. And it was Norman Vincent Peale, The Power of Believing. So then I realized that I was going to be out of business in about another 30 days. And my rent was only $300 or $350, I think. So I started practicing some of those things, Norman Vincent Peale, act as if. So as a matter of fact, being single, I met a young lady that just went through a divorce, and she volunteered to answer the phone, but the phone wasn't ringing. So we went to this phase of pretensefulness. So we acted as if. So she would pretend to answer the phone. Brad, my partner, pretended to welcome them and take the x-rays. Now, we didn't even have an x-ray machine, so, imagine that. And I pretended to treat the patients. So within 3-4 months, we had literally a little bit of a waiting time for patients. So I thought, wow, this principle is pretty interesting. It really works. And then I had several other opportunities to really see how those principles work in my life and can work in other people's lives. And in particular, after I practiced in Alabama for a year, I had to do a separate residency in Florida. So I moved to the beach, and I was doing my residency down here. And I was walking my dog on a very isolated beach in Inlet Beach. And I didn't bring a bag. So this darn animal decided, I walked it on the main road for probably a good half hour. I finally get on the beach, and it decided to move its bowel. And I don't like this, so I wanted a bag. And I didn't have a bag with me, and I thought, I need a bag. And I stepped literally a step, maybe 2 steps, and there was a perfect bag for that specimen. So I cleaned it up, and then I thought, I wonder how many bags are on this beach. How many bags can I find today? So I spent the rest of that day looking for bags, plastic bags, on the beach. Can you guess how many bags I found on that beach that day? 0. Now that's been 11, 12, that's been a few years. How many bags do you think I've seen on that spread of beach over the last 2 decades? How many, because in my mind, what I was thinking is the same little bag that, the little gallon bags or whatever that you can turn upside down. And so how many bags do you think over the last 2 decades that I have found on that beach? I found a lot of things, but I have not found one single other bag. So I thought, wow, there was no resistance, there was just a thought, and there was the manifestation. I thought, wow, that's pretty incredible. And then a couple other, as a matter of fact, I remember even before that event, I was studying for the MCAT in Pensacola, and again, funds were tight. I was traveling from that practice in Alabama because I was going to get my medical doctorates too. And And I needed a dog cage. And I know that they were $25, $30 new, but I thought, I know I can find it at a garage sale in my mind, I thought I can find it for $1. So I stayed with some friends in Pensacola, and I opened the door in the morning, and they were MCAT, they would actually teach the MCAT reviews, my buddy that I stayed with. So I opened the door in the morning, and there's a garage sale. So these are townhouses. There's another townhouse, a row of townhouses across from this townhouse row, and there's a blanket with a lot of stuff out there, a lot of stuff. And at the foremost part of that blanket, guess what was there? Yeah. So we know that our thoughts are creative. We know that our thoughts are creative. There's no doubt about that, right? There may be some other factor X that we can talk about that's another topic that I still don't understand, because I don't put anything in absolutes. I don't think that we're absolute creators. I think sometimes there's something else that plays a role in our lives that we didn't necessarily create. That's just what I found in my life experience, but we'll talk about that another time. Now, I'll give you one more example. The very same fella that I opened up my practice with, he met one of the first few patients there, and they got married. So about 12 years ago, he called me and said, hey, they moved to St. Petersburg, and I was here in the Panhandle. So he called and he said, I would like to, I want to meet you. I want to talk to you about something. It's important. I said, okay. So I said, I'm going to drive up to Tallahassee. Let's go on a bike ride. So I grabbed my bike. We met in Tallahassee. So we're riding our bikes through that beautiful Waukulla area. We stumbled upon this. It was the most beautiful hue of blue, isolated lake in the middle of nowhere. And it was just a beautiful ride. But as we're riding along, he said, I think I'm going to ask Crystal for a divorce. And I was like, wow, that's pretty big, considering that I kind of introduced them, because she was a patient, and, they hit it off. So as we were riding our bikes, I know my friend Brad, he worked with the EPA before. He's very into investments. He's very involved in investments. He's very involved in health and his well-being. And I know, because we chatted all the time, I knew what he was doing. Even at work, when he was working for the EPA, he would look at his investments and manage those things and trading daily and that sort of thing. So as we're riding along, I asked him, when's the last time you read a book on relationships? So we're riding along, he processes this thought and literally puts the brake on his bike. And we're sitting there at a standstill, and it just occurred to him that he had put no attention, no creative power, no creative capacity in that one topic that's probably a pretty significant topic, wouldn't you say? I mean, considering, it affects your economics, it may affect even your health and well-being, it affects your life. So at that point there have been many little dots on a string that basically this golden thread of how our thoughts create and how our faith affects our creative capacity too. So, but most importantly, what I wanted to talk about is how our thoughts affect our reality. So what I want to say here is this. If you have stellar health, that's fantastic, right? So I want to applaud you. Maybe we all should applaud you. Who has stellar health here? Maybe you don't need to raise your hands up. I know, maybe. How about we just applaud you? If you have stellar health, we applaud you. Because the chances are that you're probably giving your attention to health and well-being, right? You're probably not thinking about cancer, right? So who here has a fantastic relationships? We'll applaud you. Fantastic relationships. Great. Yeah. So again, you're probably doing something that's creating these outstanding relationships, right? Who here has an abundance of money? 1, 2 people? No. Let's applaud them. All right. Those 2 people, I want to talk to you after this. No, I'm just kidding. All right. Now, here's what's more important. Well, here's another great topic to applaud. We forget this, but this is really probably the hierarchy of our objectives and goals in life, right? To have an intimate relationship with all that is. To have that ability to interact, to hear God, to speak to God, that relationship. So who has an outstanding spiritual relationship? This is what this community is about, is a spiritual relationship. So who has an outstanding spiritual relationship with all that is? with the infinite mind of God. Let's applaud you, right? Good. Now here comes the good stuff. Okay, so if you've made an absolute mess, if you blotched it up really good, I'm talking about your lives, if you mucked it up really good, you deserve a round of applause too. Now seriously, who hasn't blotched up their lives, right? At some point, right? Yeah. And if you've messed up a relationship or two, or perhaps you're maybe even more talented and you even screwed up some of your close friends' relationships, we applaud you, right? Good, good. What about if you file for bankruptcy, huh? Right? Yeah, let's applaud you. Incarceration? Anyone? Incarceration? Okay, let's just assume there's one or two. So, why are we applauding every aspect of those things? Why are we applauding even those things that we consider bad things? Why? Because even if you create something negative, you're still an immensely powerful creator. Even if you blotch things up, you have to understand that that's significant. As a matter of fact, you may be even a more powerful, you're a super creator if you blotched it up really good. Yeah. So there are two things here, two types of thinking, right? I wrote a little book, it's free. It's, if you go to alternativedoc.net, it's called Extraordinary Thoughts, Extraordinary Life. Because there are two things here. We're creators, but there are two things. We're either creating constructively or destructively. But even beyond that, because even if we're constructively thinking, right, we take some active role in constructively thinking, sometimes things still don't work out for us. Sometimes we still don't make the changes. So that's what I really want to look at. That's what this conversation today is about, is how to make change possible, even though we've kind of tried and attempted and gave it a whack, let's say. So I'd like to play a little video for a minute. If we can let Steve play that video. What's that? Oh, the video's not there? Okay. Well, you sure? Rob said he put it on there, the 2-minute and 20-second video. It's got a picture of Tony Robbins meditating or something. Oh, that's for okay, can we play it now? Is that possible? I'm sorry, there was some confusion, but you'll enjoy this video, if we can get it up. Boy, I need this thing to come up about 10 feet. Let's see. Oh, just pull it? Yeah. My eyes are good, but I can't read from... Oh, okay, here we go. Okay.
Choose to live happy. Understand, if you're going to be happy, you have to be happy on purpose. Happiness is not going to fall on you. We're not going to wake up every morning and think, oh, wow, I want to be happy today. No, some mornings we're going to wake up and think, nobody better get in my way. I don't feel like going to work. I don't feel like cleaning the house. I don't feel like driving in this traffic. Some mornings we wake up grouchy. And if we get in agreement with those thoughts and we start dwelling on how we feel and what we don't have and all of our problems, we may not realize it, but we're choosing to have a lousy day. That's paving the way for defeat, discouragement, mediocrity.
I believe it starts with just taking time each morning of just to appreciate and feel grateful for all the amazing gifts that you already have right now around you in your life. You already have an amazing life.
Here's the key. When you wake up in the morning, you cannot wait to see what kind of day you're going to have. You have to decide what kind of day you're going to have. In other words, don't wait to see how you feel, what kind of mood your spouse is in, what the traffic's like, and what the stock market's doing. No, right when you get out of bed, you need to make a declaration right then and there. This is going to be a great day. I'm excited about my future. Something good is going to happen to me today. That is setting the tone for a blessed, prosperous, happy day.
as soon as you open up your eyes in the morning or whenever it is that you start the day. As soon as you open up your eyes to greet the day, you enter into consciousness. It is at that moment that your creativity is at its most powerful. Right there and then, you have an opportunity to steer your thoughts and your emotions in the direction that you want them to go, not in the direction that they're telling you to go. In other words, you can literally choose to seize the day, or you can let the day seize you.
There's nothing you can do. Just get up, start your morning, and start to win the day. There's this quote, it's win the morning and you win the day.
That should be fine. Thank you. So, was everyone able to hear that well? Did anyone get inspired to have a better morning tomorrow? Fantastic. More excited about the possibilities, right? About tomorrow? Going to do something different tomorrow? Yeah? No? So we've been positively affected by some words, and that was just 2 minutes of words. How do we learn? How do we learn anything? How do we learn number 1, number 2, number 3? How do we learn A, B, C? How do we learn? Through hearing it, right? Repetition, through hearing it. Who's been to a Tony Robbins event? Fantastic, right? How is it? You get pretty excited? Yeah, just a little bit. Now, we've all heard Joel Osteen and, a couple of minutes of it now. Whose life's been changed by that? Yeah? Okay. So the question, go ahead. So the question is that enough? We listen to some positive messages, right? Is that enough? If I'm up here and I tell you happiness is not going to fall on you, you must grab happiness, right? Does that resonate? Happiness is not going to fall on you. You must grab happiness. What does that do inside of you? Does that stir you up a little bit? Happiness is not going to chase you. You've got to grab happiness. If I tell you you can't wait to see what kind of day you're going to have, you have to decide what kind of day you're going to have, right? Joel Osteen. What does that do? Does that inspire you to do something a little different? Does that stir you up a little bit inside? If I tell you that, that in the morning, we know this, in the morning this is the most creative that we can be. This is in the mornings. In the mornings we can create our days. We can set intentions. So we know that we can impact our days by the way we start our days. There's a saying, seize the day or let the day seize you, okay? So again, what does that do? Does that stir you up to do something different tomorrow? Is that going to make a change? Is that enough to make a change in your lives? Yeah? But I'm telling you, my words, win the morning, win the day. Does that impact you? Is that enough? Is that enough? So, I grew up in Romania, and for the first few years of my life, I thought my name was No. Yeah. Do you know that we hear 14,000 no's by the time we're 1 year old? No, and don't touch that. I thought my middle name was Don't Touch That. So, mind you how many impressions we have on our minds about no's and can'ts and don'ts. Just by the time you're 10, 12 years old. Just even the first 7 years, those first impressionable years that Mary Montessori calls the first most important impressionable years. So all that is already in your mind. So if I take a red-blooded American boy, loves football, hangs out with his dad, and we take him and we expose him to ISIS messages for a year or two. What happens to this red-blooded American boy at 14 years old? This could be your suicide bomber, right? Because of conditioning to repetition. So I'm going to ask you, if we listen to a little bit of this here and there, positive videos, is that enough? Or perhaps, and I brought some props, I left them in the car, darn it. Because in the Tony Robbins sometimes event, we learn how to trigger certain feelings in our bodies, and I brought this little, I was in Rosemary Beach, and they had this little ringer, and on the thing it said something about take charge of your life, and you ring the bell. And I just kind of rang the bell and to kind of create this association like Pavlov's dog, right? You ring the bell and the thing starts slobbering, yeah? So what if we could ring the bell and we can make ourselves feel happy or joyful? or playful, or light, or faithful, or filled with faith. So, conditioning. Now, what if I tell you that you are, well, this is true, you are the highest form of creation. You are God's highest form of creation. And you are you have the super creative capacity. What if I tell you that you are the most magnificent of all creations? And you start hearing that and kind of listening to it. And because I'm telling you these words and I'm telling them to you right now, you start, for a moment right now, you start believing them, right? Because it's true. It resonates. But is that enough? What if I tell you that you have this immense free will and this capacity to create in your lives? You're kind of aware of that, right? It's based on a principle. Is that enough? What if the good pastor, the reverend, makes you warm and fuzzy everywhere? When she speaks, there's some softness inside of her that just kind of allows love to just well up inside of you, right? But is that enough? What she does is she stirs something up inside of you, but, oh, let me see if I, so she instigates something inside of you, but she can't complete it inside of you. In other words, the Sunday, just feeling that on Sundays for an hour, half hour, is that enough? Is it enough? If I tell you that you're the captains of your ships, the masters of your minds, the masters of your destiny, the quarterbacks of your lives, right? Sounds good, right? Is that enough? Does that make you the captains of your ship tomorrow? Does that make you the masters of your minds, the masters of your destiny? Does it? Why not? Why not? Maybe for a moment, right? For a moment you think, well, maybe I am the master of my ship. For a moment. And then what happens? The old conditioning kind of pipes back in, right? The old mechanism playing back, the doubts, the insufficiency. It comes back to the surface. So how do we make change possible? Because if we're not taking some really, really active role every day to make change in our lives, a positive change, we're coasting. So when you're coasting, which way are you coasting? Think about it. If you're on your bicycle and you're coasting, which way are you coasting? So what does that tell you about if you want to have more faith, if you want to have more love, more health, more abundance, more faith, what does that tell you? What does that tell you? That you have to take such an active role. When you think of, is it Myrtle Fillmore? When you think about Myrtle? Yes. Founder Unity, that's right. When you think about this woman, and that was in the 50s or 60s, is that correct? 70s? What's that? Oh, 1900s, wow. So I want you to think about what happened. This woman, she wrestled with a hippopotamus. She had tuberculosis. And she subdued this huge animal in her life called tuberculosis, which at the time it would probably eradicated and killed many people, right? So how did she do this? I mean, think about, now if we're dealing with health issues, if we're dealing with economical issues, if we're dealing with relationship issues, how do we subdue these little things? Because probably in relationship to how big her problem was, it may be smaller, possibly. We may be dealing with a little chick. You know, we can subdue a little chick. We can put it on his back and kind of, whack it around a little bit. But she wrestled, think about it, tuberculosis, and then she cleared herself of tuberculosis using thoughts, using affirmations, using beliefs. So when I ask you, is that enough? Based on research, based on neuroplasticity theory, dictates that in order for you to make a change, the level of repetition, the level of commitment, the level of consistency that you have to have in your lives, and don't for a second think it's hard, because actually it can be fun. Matter of fact, I created some affirmations around making it fun, because if it's not fun, then the likeliness of us doing it is probably a lot less, right? So if you think about it, if you want to make a change, confidence, happiness, health-related topic, again, any topic, in order to make that change possible, Based on research, now we know. See, we used to think that the brain stagnated. You know, you reach a certain age and it stagnates. But now we know that, so science supports what we already know, what we knew 100 years ago, science is supporting today, that change is possible. And it's done through what? Repetition. Through consistency and repetition. Through immense repetitions, through significant repetition. And hearing it and feeling it, we know that our thoughts are creative. What I'd like to do is maybe, and by the way, that's what the class today is about. It's today in particular we're going to look at belief systems, because how do we even get beliefs? How do beliefs come about, right? We just hear it, and you hear it a few times, and then you start believing it. And as a matter of fact, sometimes we believe it to the point where, you know, like I said, you can take a 14-year-old, 12-year-old American boy, and he believes it enough to where he becomes, you know, a trained killer. So it's amazing how impactful these minds are, and we know that. Now let's take this opportunity, and that's, again, what the class is about, and that's why I created matter of fact, there's some flyers over here. I created Optimist Club, and basically what it is, it's, because in my practice, I noticed that people would come in with the same thing over and over. They may get better, and then they come back, and they'd have other issues. So I thought, you know, where do these things come from? So I started looking at this 22 years ago, and I started looking at the limitations and the blockages, because, see, the sun's always shining. The sun's always out, but what's going on right now? How come the sun's not shining in here right now? The clouds. So what do the clouds represent in our lives? Your thoughts, your beliefs, right? Your doubts, your trepidations, your fears. That's all. But the sun's always shining. Happiness, joy, it's always, there's always an abundance of it. But if it's not happening in our lives, if we're not experiencing in our lives, it's because something is blocking our awareness. If we're not experiencing love, something's blocking love, and it's usually what? Hurt, resentments, bitterness. So that's what I started working with patients 22 years ago. I started realizing that with my first patient that came in for back pain, and a couple of weeks later he had a heart attack. I thought, man, I missed the boat. Yeah. And I had an experience right before I graduated that kind of helped solidify my decision to move into the emotional component. But it's the hardest thing for people to understand. It's the hardest thing for my patients to grasp. You know, they understand physical, you know, click on my spine, massage my back, put me on the roller bed, put some E-stem, do some needles. But if I tell them, hey, let's fix it here, you know, if you're not sleeping, let's fix it here. If you're having heartburn, if you're having thyroid issues, if you're having PTSD, if you're having cancer, cancer is just a pocket of negative energy. That's all it is. Cancer. Disease is a pocket of negative energy. Any lack, any insufficiency is a pocket of negative energy, and we can remove it. And that's what this course is about, and that's what so I started a course called, again, Optimist Club, and it's where we do call-ins twice a week. If you want to impact your lives, if you want to change, then you have to take some active steps. You have to make a little commitment to yourselves. Not necessarily with me, but on some level you have to make a commitment to not coast, because this is coasting, and this is where you want to embellish on your life. You want to assist your life. You want to go. As a matter of fact, I'll finish with this. This morning, I keep quoting the Harvard research of 1979, where they, 10 years later, they looked at the people that had written goals. And there were 27% that had written goals. And they, over the course of the 10 years, they amassed 80% of the wealth. Now, that's not important, whether or not, you know, so follow me on this. The estimate is that between 3% and 27% had written goals, and that percentage, the small percentage, they amassed most of the wealth. So again, that's not important. What's important is that when you have a written goal, it has this creative capacity, because you're no longer like a boat without a destination. You know, you just get in the ocean. Now you have a destination, you have an objective that your mind can wrap itself around. So minimally, have some written goals. Now, I hate to tell you this, but as I looked up, I thought, well, if I'm going to quote this thing, I better make sure it's real. And as it turns out, the Harvard study has been an illusion propagated by life coaches and Tony Robbins and all these other guys. So it's not actual. So they never did the research. But I'm pretty sure that, has anyone ever had a written goal and you met it? You know, right? So I'm pretty sure that if you give your mind an objective. Now, there is research on how we set intentions and how intentions affect our health and other things. So there is research on intentions and how our intentions affect other people and our lives. So there is research on that supports that absolutely. So thank you again for having me, and I hope that if you want to join in the class today, today we're covering beliefs in particular, and I hope that you decide to make some positive changes in your lives. Hope you decide to take some active steps. If it's only 15 minutes in the mornings, to start with some powerful affirmations, to start with some powerful self-talk. And I found that if you do it while you're walking, there's something about it integrating in your left and your right brain. When you're cross-crawling, when you're doing this left-right brain integration, it actually gets into your mind. It gets into the depth of your subconscious mind on a deeper and better level. Thank you for having me.